Welcome to the Coin Bureau Weekly Crypto Review. Here are this week's top headlines in the crypto news. Sam Bankman Freed. The disgraced founder of FTX and Alameda Research is released on a record $250 million bond shortly after being extradited from the Bahamas. When will we finally see justice? Stablecoin adoption increases. Japan plans to lift its stablecoin ban and Visa plans stablecoin payments, while Canada and the United States table stablecoin regulations. Which cryptocurrencies will benefit? Crypto ban backfires. The Nigerian government moves to legalize cryptocurrency after failing to force its citizens to adopt a CBDC. What does this mean for crypto and CBDC adoption around the world? Bitcoin mining crisis. A Canadian province stops providing power to crypto miners, operations go offline in the United States, and public crypto miners go bankrupt. Everything you need to know. Possible peace talks. Ukrainian and Russian officials reportedly consider cutting a deal as the war loses popularity with everyone, except, of course, the people in power. How could this affect the crypto market? And of course, some thoughts from the brilliant mind of the one and only Benjamin Cowen. All this and more in just a moment. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Guy, and what you're about to see is educational content, not financial advice. You can find any topics you're looking for using the timestamps in the video timeline. And now for today's top stories. Last week, FTX and Alameda Research founder Sam Bankman Freed was extradited from the Bahamas to the United States. It was reported prior to the extradition that his lawyers would be asking the judge to let him out on bail. Well, Sam must have some good lawyers because they managed to pull it off. Until his trial, Sam will be staying at his parents' home and will only be allowed to leave the house for various reasons, such as exercise. He was spotted flying first class shortly after the decision. All it took was a record $250 million bond. Now, the craziest part is that Sam didn't have to put down a single dollar. That's because only 10% of the bond had to be provided up front. That is $25 million, which Sam claims he doesn't have. Luckily for Sam, his parents seem to be extremely well off. They put up their $4 million house as collateral for the bond, which leaves $21 million unaccounted for. This remaining sum was reportedly provided by an unknown third party. Say, isn't Kevin O'Leary a big SBF fan? I wonder if he's made a $21 million investment recently. Now, Sam's parents and this unknown third party will be on the hook for the full $250 million if Sam breaks the conditions of his bond. And if you're wondering how the hell all this is possible, the short answer is that it's how the legal system works in most Western countries. You are innocent until proven guilty, even if everyone knows that you did it, even to the point that your former girlfriend is confirming to the press that you broke the law. This is why many media outlets continue to say that Sam allegedly committed fraud instead of declaring that he did. Now, what exactly Sam is or isn't guilty of will eventually be decided by the courts. While you wait for that process to play out, you can find out what Sam allegedly did using the link in the description. Now, Sam's first court date in the United States is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 3rd of January 2023. This assumes that more conflicts of interest won't be discovered between now and then. As some of you may have heard, the judge who was originally supposed to preside over the case had to recuse herself. This is because the judge's husband worked for one of the law firms that advised FTX before it collapsed. Obviously, this means that the judge could potentially be biased in her judgment of Sam. It's great that the judge was aware of this, but it's also scary that Sam has such close connections to the US establishment. The only thing scarier than Sam's connections is the fact that Alameda Research received the largest chunk of all the USDT ever printed by Tether. Oddly enough, This fact didn't seem to scare the Japanese Financial Services Agency, or FSA, which confirmed USDT will be allowed in the country in 2023. For context, none of the 31 cryptocurrency exchanges registered in Japan currently offer trading against stablecoins pegged to foreign currencies. The Japanese FSA will explicitly be allowing stablecoins pegged to foreign currencies to trade. This is surprising given that they could potentially undermine the yen. Now, this sounds silly until you remember that most foreign currencies have been collapsing in value against the US dollar. The Japanese yen has been having a particularly bad time as the country imports most of what it needs, which requires lots of USD. The Japanese central bank has also kept interest rates low for a long time. Now, it's a similar story in Europe, which is why European regulators will be effectively banning stablecoins pegged to foreign fiat currencies when the Markets in Crypto Assets, or MiCA, regulation goes into effect. You can find out why MiCA could be bullish for the crypto market using the link in the description. Now, what concerns non-USD countries the most about USD stablecoins is that they could quickly become a more popular means of payment than their own national currencies. Unfortunately for such countries, their greatest fears are coming true as Visa is going full steam ahead with stablecoin payments. Some of you may recall that Visa announced it would be testing USDC payments on Ethereum in March last year. Earlier this month, Visa proposed leveraging StarkNet, a Layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum, for recurring payments such as paychecks, payable directly to a person's self-custodial crypto wallet. Now, if you don't understand why Visa's proposal is so significant, consider that it would cut out the need for most financial intermediaries. Also consider that Ethereum is scheduled to implement an upgrade next summer that will increase the scalability of Layer 2 solutions by between 10 and 100x. It's almost as if the stage is being set for Ethereum to become the settlement layer for the payment system of the future, with Layer 2s as the execution layers. This is something Ethereum creator Vitalik Buterin seems to have been hinting at since last summer, and it could supercharge ETH's price action. All that's left is for stablecoin regulations to be hammered out, something that's coincidentally in progress in the United States and in Canada as of a few days ago. Proposed stablecoin regulations have historically been harsh at first, but the stablecoin lobby has so far managed to win the war of influence. The reason why stablecoin regulations have been so harsh in most countries is arguably because of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. Stablecoins are direct competitors to CBDCs. Cryptocurrencies are technically competitors to CBDCs too, but it's going to take some time for that story to play out. This is why every CBDC rollout has been preceded by a crackdown on cryptocurrency, and Nigeria is just one of many examples. What makes Nigeria different is that it has the highest rate of crypto adoption of any country. It's estimated that as many as a third of Nigerians use cryptocurrency on a regular basis. Like most governments, the Nigerian government somehow took this as a sign that most citizens would voluntarily adopt a CBDC if one was made available. Also, like most governments, the Nigerian government didn't want crypto to impede its CBDC, which is why it banned crypto in February 2021. The problem is that crypto can't be banned. So long as you have access to an internet connection, you can always get your hands on crypto. Some would say that's a part of why governments are considering making it mandatory to use a digital ID to access the internet. More about that in the description. Now, when the Nigerian government released its e-Naira in October 2021, it again had high hopes that its citizens would be quick to adopt it, especially with the attempted crypto ban. Not surprisingly, the e-Naira didn't get adopted, and recent statistics suggest only 0.5% of Nigerians are using it 1 year later. This is why the Nigerian central bank issued a controversial directive earlier this month which set a cap on how much cash could be withdrawn in the country. The news took the crypto community by storm because everyone could see that the Nigerian government was trying to force adoption of its CBDC. Now, Nigeria made the crypto headlines again last week when it suddenly announced that it would be legalizing Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies, a complete 180 from the country's previous stance. Nigerian officials claim that this is not a 180 and they insist they just want to create a, quote, vibrant capital market. As laughable as this claim is, there could be some truth to it, simply because the Nigerian central bank hasn't dropped the limits on cash withdrawals, at least not at the time of shooting. This suggests that it's changing strategies rather than admitting defeat. A stablecoin, perhaps. Speculation aside, crypto's evolution in Nigeria proves that crypto is an unstoppable force that cannot be resisted. I suspect that we will see similar story arcs play out in other countries around the world in the coming years as they try and fail to roll out their CBDCs. This shameless quest for total control will only intensify the interest in decentralization. With Bitcoin's BTC as the most decentralized currency besides physical cash, its adoption will likely spike, just as it did in Nigeria. That said, governments and their central banks will not go quietly. They will use every excuse they can come up with to justify a crackdown on cryptocurrency, especially BTC. The most popular excuse has been Bitcoin's energy use, which we've debunked in many videos you should watch if you haven't already. Link in the description. Now, if you've been keeping up with the channel, you'll know that I've been predicting a winter ban on crypto mining for a few months now. It looks like my prediction is starting to come true, because the Canadian province of British Columbia recently announced that it would be banning Bitcoin mining. Naturally, the British Columbian government is citing green energy and jobs as the reason. Now, this is ridiculous because Bitcoin mining is as green as the energy it uses. The jobs excuse is also ridiculous because Bitcoin mining can be used to bootstrap green energy operations the government wants and thus create more jobs. The caveat is that the BC government's Bitcoin mining ban will only be in place for the next 18 months. This is almost the same length as the infamous Bitcoin mining moratorium passed by the state of New York back in November. The US state used basically the same excuses as the Canadian province. Although neither British Columbia nor New York State are particularly significant Bitcoin mining sites, the Canadian province of Quebec and the great state of Texas are. Some of you might remember that Quebec is in the process of asking the Canadian government to give Bitcoin miners the boot too, citing energy grid strains. While Quebec is extremely unlikely to experience any significant energy strains given the province's power output, the same cannot be said for Texas, which uses its own power grid. The Texas grid has recently come under strain because of winter weather, and it's starting to affect Bitcoin mining. In contrast to New York State, Texas is a huge fan of Bitcoin mining. Even so, there's no denying that when the energy grid is under strain due to extreme weather events, non-essential energy users have to be temporarily cut off. This is why Bitcoin's hash rate recently fell by almost 40% before recovering. Logically, the recovery in hash rate came from the easing of weather conditions, something that may not stay for long. Winter has only just begun, and this means that Bitcoin miners in Texas and elsewhere will likely go offline in the coming months, be it voluntarily or by the decree of some anti-crypto authority. If that wasn't bad enough, publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies are starting to buckle under upwards of $4 billion in debt. Core Scientific was the most recent crypto miner to declare bankruptcy, and it won't be the last. In the interim, you can expect to see more miner capitulation. The selling of BTC by crypto miners will likely push the entire crypto market lower, and on-chain data from Glassnode suggests this second wave of selling has already started. Now, it's important to note that this is just one of the many crypto-specific factors that could take the markets lower in the coming months. There's no shortage of macro factors that could take the crypto markets lower in the coming months too. If you watched our video about the upcoming crypto catalysts, you'll know that some of these macro factors could actually support the crypto market if they result in a positive outcome. The elephant in the room here is the ongoing war in Ukraine, which has contributed to high inflation and has been restricting capital flows between countries. It's crazy to think that it's almost been a year since the war began. It's safe to say that everyone has had enough, and it looks like peace may be possible. Ukrainian officials are reportedly calling for peace talks at the end of February, and Russian officials are also reportedly open to peace talks, including Vladimir Putin himself. Not only that, but Russian officials recently announced that they're ready to provide natural gas to European countries if they want it. Of course, it's possible, if not likely, that one, or perhaps both sides, are bluffing. At the very least, it's likely that they will not come to consensus about the conditions of a peace deal. However, there's no question that Ukrainians, Russians, and the average citizen of just about every other country wants this war to be over. After all, it's only the people in power who have ever wanted war. This is why war is always funded with printed money and not with tax dollars. Since the dawn of time, the people in power have known that in most cases and conflicts, the average person does not want to fight because they have nothing to gain. Once upon a time, it was possible to convince regular people to fight those who are ultimately their brothers and sisters in other countries. In today's day and age, however, it's easy for us to examine people in other countries and see that we're more alike than we are different, despite all the government propaganda. This is all thanks to the free flow of information online, which has made it possible for each person to do their own research about what's really going on. It turns out that most of what we've been told about most things has been completely false. The last 2.5 years are really just the tip of the iceberg in this regard. This is why governments around the world are rushing to censor information online. The last thing they want is for us to understand what's going on and to all get along, because then it's us versus them and not us versus ourselves. Now, I'll be doing a video about internet censorship sometime next week, so stay tuned for that. And with that said, let's move over now and hear what Ben Cowen has on his mind this week. Ben, happy Christmas, sir, and take it away.
Hey Guy, thanks again for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to spend a few moments this week talking about the time-based capitulation component of a pretty typical Bitcoin bear market. We know that Bitcoin's bear markets can often see the price going down somewhere between 80, 85% or somewhere in that ballpark. And if we experience the entirety of that drop in a single day, it might actually be quite easy because then the time-based component of the bear market would be over. However, Bitcoin has a way of trending down for potentially up to a year, if not longer than a year, before typical bear markets tend to finalize. If you look at the bear market that we've currently been living through, you'll notice that we'll often spend more time trending higher for weeks, if not months at a time, before actually capitulating out of that level and going down to a new low. So I want people to be cognizant of this idea that time is often an important factor to a Bitcoin bear market. Sometimes you just have to wait a year or even more if 2014 is an indication, where the Bitcoin bear market lasted about 14 months. So looking back at this Bitcoin bear market, you can see we've often spent several weeks, if not months, trending higher, only to eventually break down to a new level. And this is that time-based capitulation component where a lot of people will pour money into the market and get excited only for it to break down to a new low. So again, it's important to recognize that Bitcoin's bear markets have a way of drawing a lot of money in, and then by the time it actually goes back up, a lot of people aren't even going to believe it because we're also used to it only ever breaking to the downside. But again, the good times should return at some point. The other thing I wanted to mention, we talked about this before, is this Ethereum logarithmic regression channel, which we are still sitting just above. I'm still of the opinion that Ethereum will return to its lower logarithmic regression trend line. It has done so essentially every bear market before we go into a new bull market. You'll notice that Ethereum does tend to return to that lower regression channel. Currently, Ethereum is hanging out right around $1,200. You can see the lower regression channel is really not even that much lower than the current price is. If Ethereum were to make this move into this lower logarithmic regression channel, I think we can start to make the case that we could start finding some type of a longer term base to build out of. The other thing I wanted to check back in on, this is something we spoke about a few weeks ago as well, is Bitcoin's balance price. We normally have daily closes below it before market cycle bottoms have historically been in. If you look at it, it occurred in 2011. Again, it also occurred in 2015 as well, right? Daily closes below the balance price. And then again over here in 2018. We have not yet seen a daily close below the balance price this bear market. We have had a wick below it, and I suppose it's up to every person individually to figure out if that's an important factor for them or not. But you can see that, in fact, Bitcoin has not had any daily closes below the balance price, which is now sitting at approximately $14.57 thousand. So about 14.5K is where the balance price currently sits. And remember that historic market cycle bottoms occurred upon daily closes below the balance price. And then the final thing I wanted to take a look at is the MVRV Z-score for Bitcoin. And you'll notice historic bottoms have occurred just below where we are sitting. You know, the last time I think I talked about the MVRV Z-score, it was before the most recent move to the downside. But it has continued to push just a bit lower as time goes on. You can see that historic bottoms on the MVRV score, if I were to sort of draw a line across the page, have occurred just a bit lower than where Bitcoin currently is. The way I see the market is I think there's a lot of opportunity coming up for Bitcoin in 2023 for people to really get prepared for hopefully a bull market sometime in the 2024 to 2025 timeframe. Thanks again for having me back on the show, Guy. Look forward to being here again next week. Bye.
And that's all for today's Coin Bureau Weekly Crypto Review. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe button, and bell icon too. If you're looking to maximize your gains during the bear market, the Coin Bureau Deals page is where you should go. You can find the link to that resource and many others in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in next week's episode.